welcome. I am Tanika Aiden. I am the Leadership and Advocacy Coordinator at Pave, and I am mom and an organizer. And for those of you joining us tonight who are low vision, visually impaired, or blind, or if you're on the phone, I am an African American woman with black braids. I'm wearing a gold shirt and I have glasses, and I am sitting in a black chair in front of a black desk. And with me tonight is my new co-host.
Hi, I'm Megan Smedzrud, co-chair of the Developmental Disability Advisory Board in Pierce County, and I am a Caucasian woman with brown hair and brown eyes wearing a tan sweater, also sitting in a black chair in front of a black desk. We will be your MCs for the evening.
This is Tanika. Thank you all for being here, and a special thanks to Pierce County Human Services, Pierce County DD Advisory Board, Pave, PC2, and the many planning committee members representing several Pierce County organizations for your time, energy, and collaboration to make tonight's forum possible.
This is Megan. Throughout the evening, we may have a range of leaders joining for all or any part of tonight's forum. To Pierce County Council members, mayors and city council members, school board members, special education directors, teachers, case managers, residential, employment and vocational partners, family resource coordinators, therapists, and of course, members of our community, thank you and welcome.
Tanika again. We want to specifically thank our developmental disability partners, Melissa Adame, our developmental disability supervisor, Chris Peterson, who is the Region 3 administrator, and to further welcome us all, a native of Pierce County, Bruce Dammeyer.
Welcome to the annual Pierce County Legislative Forum. As a former senator and state representative, I remember fondly these meetings. I remember them because they were powerful. I learned a lot and I got a lot of insight, and I appreciated the stories of the advocates and the fact that they had positive ways that we could move forward on behalf of the community with developmental disabilities in Pierce County. And I want to thank both the advocates in the room and the legislators for the important work that was done last session, particularly with House Bill 1980, which eliminated the artificial prohibition between being in both supported employment and community inclusion services. That was important. And right now, Pierce County's own developmental disabilities team is working on how to effectively implement that in Pierce County for the betterment of our community. And our DD team in Pierce County has a lot of work on their plate right now as we move to come out from the pandemic and move forward to support the community here. I can tell you that our early supports for infants and toddlers, getting that back to in-person screening and referrals is really important, and the referrals are up. I can tell you our community outreach and education providers program is going well and expanding, where we help people understand what programs are there for them, what services they can qualify for. And I was very excited that 60% of our in-school to work students graduated with a job. That's fantastic. So while tonight we want to remember those good things that have happened, we're really still building on addressing the unmet needs and the challenges still ahead. When we think about our intellectual and developmental disability population within Pierce County, we still have a lot of work to do. So I thank you for sitting down tonight. I look forward to hearing the stories, and I look forward to the important work that's going to come out of this legislative session as we move our community forward. So thank you very much and have a great evening.
Megan again. We acknowledge that we are on the traditional homelands of the Puyallup tribe. The Puyallup people have lived on and stewarded these lands since the beginning of time and continue to do so today.
This is the land of the Puyallup people. To aslachiltis to ishachas, lich ilguis atis holch, yafti stolak, yafti quote to alturi to hak. our people have lived along the saltwater, the rivers, and these waterways for a long, long time. The city of Tacoma was founded in 1872, but many don't know that the lands around what is now known as Commencement Bay have always been a bustling metropolitan for the Puyallup people. In our Lushootseed language, we are known as Puyallapopsh, people from the bend at the bottom of the river. This refers to the sharp bend the Puyallup River once took near the present-day Tacoma Dome. Our primary village spanned outward from the mouth of the Puyallup River and was made up of dozens of smaller villages along the creeks and waterways draining into the bay. We know this area as Salesh Ali, place of lake. There used to be small lakes near downtown Tacoma. This name was extended to include the Tacoma city limits by our ancestors in the 1800s. Like other villages located at the mouths of rivers throughout the Puget Sound, Salesh Ali was the heart of our social, economic, and political networks, connecting us with the people and villages upriver and along the Sound. We lived in longhouses along the rivers and creeks and traveled primarily by canoe along the vast waterways. Along with our oral histories and traditional narratives, archaeological evidence can be found all throughout the city that upholds our ongoing presence in the Tacoma area since time immemorial, or since before anyone can remember. What's most important to know, though, is that we are still here. After numerous negotiations and even a war, our people entered into the Medicine Creek Treaty with the U.S. in 1855. The treaty defined our reservation boundaries, which spans over the modern-day cities of Fife, Milton, and Tacoma, including Dash Point and Browns Point. For years, it was illegal for our people to live off the reservation and to practice our traditional lifeways. Thanks to the resiliency of our ancestors, the Puyallup tribe has grown to be a recognizable social, political, and economic force on both the local and national stage. Today, many of our tribal members live both on and off the reservation. While you can find proud Puyallup people far and wide, many of us continue to live and work on the very lands our ancestors once called home, right here in Salesh Ali.
Our practice tonight of land acknowledgement recognizes that the land we are standing on is stolen. We recognize the people and communities that cared for and lived on the lands, and we acknowledge the Coast Salish tribe stewardship, their forced removal, and their continued fight to live on their ancestral lands.
We recognize that this land acknowledgement is one small step towards true allyship, and we commit to uplifting the voices, experiences, and histories of the Indigenous people of this land and beyond.
Tanika here. Pave is part of a multinational state and local network of families of children and youth with special health care needs and disabilities. Our children and families need multiple services and supports to live an optimal life. Unfortunately, Black families with special health care needs and disabilities experience unacceptable inequities in the access to the provision of care and services, public education, and are disproportionately criminalized.
In solidarity with those who are speaking out about the urgent need to address these disparities, we say, we see you, we hear you, we stand with you.
Tanika here. We are committed to ensuring that our healthcare, education, and other vital systems, our communities, our nation, and the world respect, include, and equally value the voices of Black children and families.
Megan again. We stand in solidarity with those who condemn the murder of George Floyd, Charlena Lyles, Manny Ellis, Tony McDade, Breonna Taylor, Tamir Rice, and Rashard Brooks, and so many other Black men, women, and children.
Tanika here. We stand united with those who call for an awakening in the collective conscience of our nation. We stand united with those who demand the end of structural racism and join together to begin the work of dismantling it.
This is Megan. We stand united and committed to moving forward with those who work to bring about equal opportunities and supports for all children and families. We are engaged in these difficult and necessary conversations to promote change.
Tanika again. The staff and Board of Pave continue to reflect, adapt, and improve our outcomes to address the impact of racism on children and youth with disability and special health care needs and their families. We will listen, amplify our voices, and work towards systematic change. We do so in partnership.
Megan here. And tonight is a partnership with all of you and those who will continue to join us throughout our night. As is said so often, nothing about us without us. So continue to settle in, grab a snack, get something to drink. Here's what's coming up. The Tracy Vanderwall Leadership Award will be first, and then we'll be going district by district, having our legislators and their staff do introductions.
Tanika here. And to help us, legislators and staff, please keep renaming yourself on Zoom with your district number followed by your name, as we are going to pivot soon.
Megan here. After those introductions, we're going to turn our attention to our speakers who are going to share their lived experience as it relates to one of the 3 legislative priorities. Finally, we'll end our time tonight in district breakout rooms with each other, legislators, and their staff. We realize that some legislators may have planned to attend and something may have come up, while for others they may be with us until the end of the evening. So that's our overview of how we'll be spending our time together.
On behalf of the Legislative Planning Committee, it established the Tracy Vanderwall Leadership Award. This mother, leader, friend, and founding executive director of PC2 and this legislative forum died in September of 2019. To honor her legacy as a tireless champion for families and self-advocates in our community, this leadership award was established in Tracy's name. Now, any recipient of this award is not expected to grab a bullhorn and zip around in a golf cart, as Tracy did at the Rainbow Festival, but it does recognize individuals who seek to improve the lives of individuals with developmental disabilities and who demonstrates a commitment to our community and are a change agent.
The very first recipient of this award was Diana Stadden when the forum was in person in Building 11 of the Tacoma Community College. That following year, we recognized Tammy Campbell McGrath. And now to present this year's award.
Hi, this is Ivanova Smith, and I am the 2021 recipient of the Tracy Vanderwall Award. And today it is my honor to get to give this award to a really close friend of mine and colleague, Adrian Stewart, who was a great leader and ally to people with people with intellectual and developmental disabilities throughout Washington State. She worked with us on legislation that helped end discriminatory practices for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. We are so thankful to her advocacy, and I personally am very thankful to her, and I see her as a great champion, and I hope to keep doing this amazing work with her, and totally am excited for her to be the 2022 recipient of the Tracy Vanderwall Advocacy Award. Congratulations, Adrian! Woo!
Thank you so much to my fellow DD advocates here in Pierce County for nominating me for this award. As with any award given for a monumental effort, such as the one that happened this last legislative session, I know you had to pick one person to give it to, but the work that we accomplished this last legislative session could not have happened without hundreds of people, many of whom live right here in Pierce County, working together across the state to tell our stories to legislators and make sure that they understand the gap in services and supports that exist for people with developmental disabilities and their families. Big shout out to my colleagues Sandy Gruberg, Ivanova Smith, Diana Staden, Robert Wardell, all the families and people with developmental disabilities that lent their heft to this amazing effort. I also want to give a shout out to Representative Taylor for sponsoring two of the biggest, most successful bills that have happened in the legislature in recent memory. Her efforts to get these really amazing changes into our community must be thanked and publicly acknowledged. Also, Senator Trudeau, Senator Randall, always amazing champions in our community. And I just want to give so much gratitude to the deep bench of advocates that we've got here in Pierce County. Thank you. And I look forward to continuing our efforts this next legislative session.
Thank you, Ivanova, for that introduction, and congratulations again, Adrienne.
Yes, congratulations, Adrienne, not just for the work you did here in Pierce County, but for the work you've done to improve the lives of people with disabilities all around the state. So it's up to all of us, as Tracy would say, to keep the promise. So let's take a moment to look at the work of the Legislative Planning Committee and the Developmental Disabilities Advisory Board.
The Pierce County Developmental Disabilities Advisory Board assists and advises Pierce County Human Services on services to individuals with developmental disabilities, the development of the 5-year plan, agency operations conducted under the plan, evaluation of ongoing programs, and the selection of contractors, just to name a few things. As the co-chair, we welcome and need community members to join me and our other members.
If you're interested in serving our community as an advisory board member, go to www.piercecountywa.gov and check out their vacancies and learn more on how to join them. And we are grateful for our advisory members for their work to help create the 2023 legislative priorities.
It was a great process this year.
So the full legislative packet, including the priorities, are being shown right now. And it's available again on www.piercelegislativeforum.org website. So right there, that website. All right, everybody, so it's time when we welcome our legislators and their staff. Ooh. So we will go in numerical order of the districts. So please take a moment to introduce yourselves and the district you represent so that all may share. We are asking each person to keep their remarks to less than a minute if you can. So we're going to start with district number 2. So if you would like to unmute and introduce yourself from district number 2. All right, and let's move to District 25. Is anyone here from District 25?
Hello, everyone. My name is Diana Hawkins, and I'm sitting in tonight for Representative Kelly Chambers. And she sends her regrets for not being here, but she went to that really important fentanyl crisis meeting. So she sent me her next best in. And you all know that she's definitely for all of your concerns and issues. So just really happy to be here.
Hi, I'm Kaylin Jensen. I am the legislative assistant to Senator Gildon, who had also planned to be at this meeting. And then earlier in this week, was called to the same fentanyl meeting. So I'm happy to be here in his place. And I know I've been had the privilege of working with Diana a couple of times over last session in the interim. So as helpful as you guys are to us, I hope we can be as helpful to you.
All right, was that everyone from District 25? Let's jump over to District 26. Thank you for being here tonight.
Hi there, I'm Senator Emily Randall, and I represent the 26th district, which is Bremerton, Port Orchard, Gig Harbor, and the Key Peninsula. I am a sibling of, an individual with disabilities, and have been really grateful to be able to be on the team working and advocating for investments in our communities, ensuring that we lift up the voices of family members and individuals experiencing disabilities in the legislative process. And I'm always grateful to, work arm in arm with the folks on this call and in our coalitions, and the growing number of legislators who have lived experience and are focusing on disability rights and justice. So happy to be here.
Oh, great. So my name is LJ Rohr, and I'm with Representative Caldier's office, and regret she can't be here this evening. She had a long-standing commitment that she is at this full evening, and so she regrets she can't be here. She loves the 26th Legislative District, was born and raised in Kitsap County. She is on the and for individuals with these needs. And so I look forward to being here tonight and taking down lots of notes, and appreciate the opportunity to be here. So thank you so much.
Hey, Tanika and Megan, it's Tracy. We're not seeing anybody have renaming, so we could move on. We definitely have 29 and 30.
All right,
Great.
Let's go 29.
I am State Senator Steve Conway, and very happy to be here now. Probably I've been at these meetings that usually occur in the fall, right before Thanksgiving or right after Thanksgiving, for nearly 2 decades, over 2 decades. And I've always found these meetings to be a great way of listening to families with disabled children, and also with disabled individuals as well. I can remember when Tracy Vanderwall gave me a plaque back in the late 90s, a plaque that I remember very well, that says 3 words: keep the promise. And the keep the promise was the need that the state needed to do to address the needs of their disability families and individuals, and the need for us to put our souls into this fight, not just our words. And I was very happy this last session to see the bills that Senator Braun brought forward to address the issues of the number of families who are unable to get services, and to start this process of moving forward to ensure that all families have access to services and that there isn't a waiting list. And I hope to hear more about that. My great ally in this has always been Diane Stodden, who was a member of the 29th district, but I see she's abandoned me and gone over to the 27th. So I'm sad about that. I was never a favor of seeing that area part of the 27th district. It should have been a part of the 29th, but I look forward to this evening and hearing from the families and working with them to ensure that we keep the promise. Thank you.
All right, and 30th district.
Well, I guess I'll start. I'm Senator Claire Wilson, and I will say we're interlopers tonight.
And the reason we're interlopers is because we did some redistricting, and unfortunately we lost our sliver of Pierce County. However, I will also say my seatmate and I know, believe dearly that this is critically important. And as both vice chair of early learning K-12 and as chair of human services reentry and rehabilitation for the Senate, this is an incredibly important group of individuals that need to have access, opportunity, and voice. And we'll make sure we continue to work together to bring the voice through the Senate committee that I sit on, in partnership with Rep. Taylor, with Senator Randall, and also with Senator Cleveland. And the 30th is Federal Way, Algona, Pacific, Des Moines, Kent, Auburn, and unincorporated King County. And Pacific is split, so Pierce County is in another. The Pierce County side's in one district, and the King County side is in the 30th. So pass it on to my seatmate, Rep. Taylor. Thanks for the invitation.
Thank you, Senator Wilson. It's so wonderful to have you in partnership on these efforts. I am a Representative Jamila Taylor, and I am excited to continue the work in this space and to be in action with this community. I do have a brother who has developmental disabilities. So I'm vested in the success of the work of this community, the self-advocates, the family members, and beyond. And you will certainly hear from me again and again and again. So I won't take up all of your time tonight. And I will see you in the near future. I have to hop off in a little bit, but certainly looking forward to reading through your priorities and incorporating them into our action for the next legislative session.
All right. Well, thank you all for joining us.
Absolutely.
Look at the 30th district. Took them away and they're still here at our forum. So thank you all for being here tonight. Are there any legislators that I missed here?
Any lingering introductions?
All right. Well, this is Tanika. And as we turn our attention to tonight's speakers, keep in mind how important each one of us are. Our stories, our lives can be a force for change. And sadly, on November 3rd, our world lost an amazing advocate, artist, friend, and neighbor. And her legacy lives on across our nation and in all our communities. Lois Carter was one of the plaintiffs in the landmark Olmstead case, where the Supreme Court in 1999 ruled in favor of Ms. Curtis and her co-defendant Elaine Wilson. Justin Ruth Bader Ginsburg, hopefully I didn't mess it up too bad, wrote in her opinion, states are required to place persons with disabilities in community settings rather than in institutions, as they are capable and worthy of participating in one's community. And a career highlight for Ms. Carter was meeting President Obama in 2011 and presenting him with one of her self-portraits. So thank you.
Thank you, Tanika. All of tonight's speakers bring their story, their lived experience, and represent 6 of our 7 legislative districts. While their story may not be your story, the elements that they bring to light and amplify the 2023 legislative priorities to keep with each of us as we approach the upcoming session and beyond.
All right, this is Tanika. So our first speaker is Melissa Hornbeck, who lives in the 29th Legislative District. And Melissa's story connects with our first priority, which is incentivizing the development of low-income housing by earmarking funds and offering incentives that allow the projects to be competitive. Melissa is a white and Native woman with long brown hair. She's wearing glasses and is sitting at a park wearing a purple long sleeve shirt, seated in front of a lake at Wapato Park. Let's see Melissa.
My name is Melissa Hornbeck. I live in Tacoma, the 29th Legislative District. I'm here to talk about housing and how it affects us and the people around us. I currently do have housing. I definitely have quite a few challenges. My landlord decided that they were selling our old place, and they gave us 3 months to try to find somewhere to live. I have a mother that is in a wheelchair most of the time. She can't feel her feet at all. So I needed a bottom floor that was ground level, not to be confused with bottom floor that has stairs to get to it. On top of that, I needed a place where her wheelchair could fit through the front door and actually make the corner in. The other issue I have is I also take care of her boyfriend, who is visually blind, and because of his stroke, sometimes has anger issues. So I needed a place where there wasn't much smoking because he has asthma, and that also sets off his anger. On top of all that, I also needed a place that allowed my 3 emotional support animals, one for me, one for my mom, and one for Gabe, because we all have depression, and our pet. And we needed it to be affordable. And after $3,000 of putting in monies to do background checks, we got one offer that was accepted. And places won't help us with rent or deposits there because they say we can't afford it. But it's the only place that would take us. I know of at least 4 other people that asked me to look for them while I was looking myself. I know that one of them still was looking. She's a paraplegic and she can't physically go view stuff by herself anymore. So it's really challenging to know whether her bed that she needs and her wheelchair and her other electrical equipment will fit in an apartment, let alone one where it's ground floor, so she doesn't have to take all that stuff upstairs because she can't really move. It affects everybody, and it's even worse when you can't sit down and call everybody, because I called so many agencies. I called everybody on the list. I even had the President of the United States aide call in for us to see if there was anything they could find, and none of that panned out. One of the ways to fix it is a very obvious one of more money funding for that. Also, having more low-income housing, specifically with spots on the bottom, preferably reserved for people with disabilities or blindnesses that have trouble with elevators or stairs. Because if there's a fire and the elevator's broken, they don't want to risk, can I make it to the elevator? Will it still be working? We had that discussion, and in fact, my mom said, just leave me behind and let me die if we need an elevator. So for me, I wasn't looking at any places that had elevators because of how Mom felt about that. The other one that to me seems obvious is having a case manager that can make those calls. Because if I wasn't there for my mom, she wouldn't be able to make those calls because stress makes her disease worse. So her baseline doesn't get better. It just gets worse and worse and worse the more she has to deal with stressful situations, like calling people and getting rejected and having to tell her story over and over again. It just makes her worse and worse. And that's not acceptable. On top of taking care of my mom, who has disabilities, and her boyfriend, who's had a stroke and has disabilities, and my 2 dogs and 2 cats. I also am on the spectrum. I didn't get diagnosed until I was 21, but my mom always knew that there was something going on there. I didn't talk until I was 3. I would just like to say we need to take into consideration not just people, but people with disabilities, people with mental disabilities or delayed development. We all matter. We're all part of America, and we all need to make sure we have safe, happy living environments. It's a basic need.
This is Megan. Thank you, Melissa, for sharing with all of us your support for yourself and your loved ones, from your mom, her boyfriend, and your support animals. Housing for people with developmental disabilities has been historically underfunded and is in crisis. We cannot let this continue. Housing is a basic human need so that we can be fully contributing citizens. In the state of Washington, some care providers may be compensated for the work they do to provide support and personal care to individuals with disabilities living in the community. This is the case for all individuals with a disability over the age of 18. However, parents of individuals with a disability under the age of 18 cannot be compensated for providing the same critical care. Caregiving is hard work. There is a solution. Remove the language in our Washington Administrative Code. And yes, there is a handout in the packet for this too. It's called Parent-Provider Inequity. Next, we'll hear from Scott Jenkins, who lives in the 28th Legislative District and works at the YMCA. Scott's story amplifies the need for increased housing programs in Pierce County. Scott is a Black man who wears glasses, is seated on his green couch wearing a green polo shirt, and has his stereo behind him.
My name is Scott Jenkins. I live in Tacoma. I'm here to share my life experiences. Yes, I have housing. Well, my challenges right now are my rent here has gone up, and eventually I'm going to have to move into somewhere that's subsidized.
How does it make you feel that you can only live in certain places?
It makes me feel like a slave. Get me out of these chains. We need more choices. Well, I would like to see more places, more complexes subsidized. I would like walking distance to both work and church. That would be ideal. I've applied for Social Security Disability, but I'm still waiting on it and see they qualify me or not. But the thing is, I know they block people who abuse the system, but that doesn't mean they should make it hard for people who do need it. I work at the YMCA. I'm a membership representative, and I check people in. I was in a community-based transition program, and I was on the work crew at TCC. 3 months before I graduated, the people in charge of that program helped me get the job at Safeway in Puyallup. Talk about fresh out of high school. I started working before I graduated. I think we should get more funding so people can get the help they need for housing and services. Together, we can make things happen.
This is Tanika. Thank you, Scott. Get me out of these chains. Thank you for your 22 years with the state and now helping all members of the YMCA. Affordable housing programs are drastically underfunded, and people experience long wait lists, causing housing insecurities. And there are nearly 2,000 individuals living in adult family homes, while another 13,624 adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities live with a parent or relative. Adult family homes provide critical housing solutions for adults, and we ask you to learn more about the proposed solutions in the handout. It's called Support Adult Family Home Recommendations. It too is in your packet and available online at our website, www.piercelegislativeforum.org. Please know, we greatly appreciate the investment last session of supported living providers. They are the primary provider serving people with developmental disabilities in their home and community. But let's be real, supported living providers are facing intense financial pressures too. To combat those financial pressures, we expect an increase in livable wages over 8% in 2023. And to keep pace with our state's minimum wage increase, an 8.26 provider rate increase is necessary to stabilize agencies and provide a living wage to ensure housing options in Pierce County. So please keep this in mind when we listen to our next speaker, Josie Schindler, who also lives in the 28th District. Josie is a single mom of 2, and she loves working at the climate change arena in Seattle because she is a huge Seahawks and Mariners fan. Josie is a white woman with long strawberry blonde hair with bangs and blue eyes. And she is wearing a Seahawks jersey, of course. And she's standing in front of a tan wall. And like Melissa and Scott, Josie's story advocates for increased housing options here in Pierce County.
My name is Josie. I live in Pierce County. I'm here to talk about housing. Guess I had to deal with challenges. My caregivers had to help fight to get me on the housing list for many, many years. We had to fill out a form, send it in, and wait for them to get back to us. When I first got my apartment, I felt like I was a person because I was living in my own apartment for the first time. I see a lot of people who need housing and should have housing. I see them out in the community in a tent, without housing. And I think a lot of people in the institutions will need caregivers to help them because the process is really hard. I think it would help people get out of institutions if we had more housing. I think we need to make housing affordable for people to get housing. I think we need to make the list easier to get on, a lot easier for them to accept the people who need the housing. I like having a roof over my head. I think other people would too if they could afford it. I strongly advise you to help people get housing.
This is Megan. Thank you, Josie, for championing housing needs for all in Pierce County to make sure everyone, including the 72 people who want to move from Rainier School in Pierce County. Whatever a person's choice, we ask that the legislature provides funding to have a plan to safely transition each person into community settings. In the 2023 legislative packet, you will find 8 handouts in the housing section loaded with this data, other facts, and more information. The bottom line is, it's critical to expand safe, affordable housing options for all the Melissas, Scotts, Josies, and their families in our county to ensure residential supports are available. Before we move on to our next speaker, I'd like to welcome Mary Levitt, who has arrived, one of our legislators, who has arrived from the 28th District. Welcome. Our next speaker will also highlight housing needs and our second priority, permanent caseload forecasting. Gwen Goodfellow lives in the 2nd Legislative District. A recent college graduate, wife, and mother, her household includes her husband, son, her son's girlfriend, her new baby granddaughter, congratulations, elderly mother, and 2 dogs. Gwen is a white woman who wears glasses, has blonde shoulder-length hair, and is wearing a yellow top and a black sweater.
My name is Gwen Goodfellow. I live in like the South Hill, Frederickson area in Puyallup. I have been a part-time caregiver for my mom for 8 years. During that time, I was a massage therapist, and then I went to school for environmental science. It was my mom and my husband. We all lived together. And then last year, my son and his girlfriend joined us when my son became disabled. So now it is my mom, my husband, me, my son, his girlfriend, and my almost 1-year-old grandchild, plus our 2 dogs. So we really had problems like accessing like good mental health services for my son. The first time that he was hospitalized, it was an involuntary commitment because he was really unwell. And they sent him home, and like to find a place like to get his medications and to get like counseling and stuff, they weren't going to be able to get him in for 2 months. And the clinic that he was at only sent him home with 2 weeks of medication. So guess what happened in 2 weeks? He ended up in the hospital again on another involuntary, because when the meds started running out, he started not doing well again. And that time they actually kept him until he was almost stable, but for some reason they discontinued some of his medications before sending him home. We still don't know what happened there. So he got home and he was fine for a couple of weeks. I mean, fine-ish, but we still did not have outpatient services for him. And he ended up in the hospital again. And right. So this time they kept him for almost 3 weeks this time. He was still not really stable, but he was no longer like a danger to himself or a danger to others, they deemed. But one thing that I was told too was that like they basically needed to make room for other people who were more sick. And so he was sent home. That's the time where I slept on his bedroom floor for a couple of weeks, and was with him for basically 24 hours a day because there's just not adequate mental health services. I myself, as soon as this started happening with my son, I started getting into counseling, but it took 3 months, and that's through my private my insurance through my job. You would not think it was going to take 3 months to get a counselor assigned. My husband, he takes antidepressants, and they still don't have they keep referring him to medication management for psychiatric services, and they just never, his regular doctor has to just keep prescribing him because they just don't have anybody. And I hear this a lot, that there's just not mental health care services, that the services that are here are overloaded. There's too many people needing assistance, and there's a lot going on that causes mental health issues. I mean, how stressed am I right now about in 6 months paying my rent? I mean, we're trying to figure out how that's going to work in 6 months. So, and that's a mental health issue. That anxiety and that stress is starting to affect me physically. It affects my mental well-being from day to day, and there's no help for that.
Tanika here. Thank you, Gwen, for sharing your story. That brings attention to both priority number 1 on housing and priority number 2, which is a permanent caseload forecasting for all DDA services. How can we obtain adequate services if we are not sure of the needs? Caseload forecasting will inform our policymakers of the number of people eligible for certain services and allow them to plan so that we can have critical services available to those who are eligible. There are an estimated 120,000 people in Washington state with a developmental disability. Almost 50,000 of them are clients that are enrolled with Developmental Disabilities Administration, with 75% of individuals who are receiving at least one paid service, while another 25%, or nearly 12,500 people, are receiving no paid services. No services. So keeping the people who make up those numbers in mind, caseload forecasting will inform policymakers to ensure critical services are available to those who are eligible. So our next speaker's story will also layer in how vital critical services are when your child has complex medical needs. So our next speaker is Adrienne Stewart. Yes, that was the person that won the award, and she lives in the 27th Legislative District. She is a white woman and a mother to children with disabilities. Adrienne is a white woman with long, curled blonde hair. She is seated on a striped chair below 2 maps and is wearing a black top with white polka dots. Let's hear from Adrienne.
Hi, my name is Adrienne Stewart, and I'm a mom to 2 kids with developmental disabilities. I live here in the 27th Legislative District, And I'm really honored to be able to speak to you all this evening with regard to an issue that's near and dear to my heart, and that is caseload forecasting, or asking the state to plan for the care and the services and supports that people with developmental disabilities and their families need to be able to live independently in the community. It can be really difficult to get the services that you need in the community, even if you do get a waiver. Obviously, the waiver is necessary, but it's not sufficient, right? So, for example, it took many months of trying to get an assessment from DDA when my son was 2. They didn't want to assess him because they said he's too young to get services. I pressed and pressed. As a person with a lot of privilege and tenacity, I had the bandwidth to be making these calls over and over again to DDA to just get an assessment for my son. That was very difficult. So we were put on what's called an IFS, Individual and Family Supports waiver with DDA, and we got a little bit of respite dollars, but there was nobody in the community to provide the respite care. So for several years, I really wasn't able to use the services on the waiver. Then we got on to the Basic Plus waiver, and now we are able to use more of the respite dollars that are available to us on the Basic Plus waiver. But again, those supports are pretty lacking in the community. Recently, my son went through an illness and was hospitalized with RSV and intubated. As a result of his overall health profile, he was placed on to hospice care. And so we're so grateful that he is now getting really intensive services and supports through Marybridge hospice care. We are getting infused with the services and supports, honestly, that we've needed for 8 years and that have just not been available to us. And so it strikes me as a mom, as an advocate in our community, that these services and supports are available, but not until you are at the end of your life. And I think that is a real disservice to people with developmental disabilities and their families to wait until the end of someone's life to give them the supports and services that they've needed their entire lives. One example of this that I would love to share is this call that I get every week. And this, I feel like, is really emblematic of how things can be in our community if we choose.
Good morning, this is I'm a volunteer with Multi-Care Hospice, and I was just reaching out to see if you needed any supplies or medication. If you think of anything, just give us a call back. I hope you have a great weekend, and we'll check on you next week.
I get these in the medical system, but boy, I could sure use them. I could have used them for 8 years in the DDA world. So the first step, the necessary first step, is to get caseload forecasting across the finish line this legislative session. Make sure that the services and supports that people with developmental disabilities and their families need are an entitlement. And so they don't have to wonder whether or not, if they've got a developmental disability, that they are entitled to the services and supports that they need to be able to live independently in the community.
This is Megan. Adrienne, we know that you have joined us here this evening and just so appreciate you being here and want you to know that the whole community is with you and our hearts are with you. We also want to acknowledge that many of the things that you described in this video are similar for families all across Pierce County, and our hearts go out to all of those families dealing with these struggles. We know that many families are grateful to receive early supports for infants and toddlers, and not enough families have had access to those services. As a community, we need to assure services for all of our medically fragile children and children with special health care needs. We are grateful for the legislators' support of the parent-to-parent program here in Pierce County and statewide. So let's face it, being there for families facing frequent hospitalizations and those who need monitoring and assessments of their children's medical issues, they also need their community members to provide support, information, resources, those phone calls that Adrienne wished that she had been receiving all of those years. That is exactly why community outreach and education organizations like PC2 and Pave exist. It's essential that we all do what we can given the financial, emotional, physical, and intense stress families are experiencing. And it's why increased funding for community outreach and education organizations is vital to provide calls and offer supports so parents and families can weather the strain on relationships, preserve their ability to work, and avoid becoming bankrupt to have to meet their child's medical needs. No family should have to go through that. It may be hard to hear or imagine the realities facing families in Pierce County. However, we must let that fuel our actions during this legislative session to pursue solutions. Just as Adrienne's story amplified, their loved ones are counting on us to act. Now, let's hear Brian and Leslie Burnham, who are a white family and live in the 25th district with their son Cooper. Leslie has light brown hair pulled back in a ponytail and is wearing a black top. Sitting next to her is their son Cooper, who has short blonde curly hair and is wearing an orange t-shirt. To their right is Brian, who has a beard and is wearing a black sweater, and above them are family photos.
Hi, our names are Leslie and Brian Burton, and we live in Puyallup, Pierce County. We're here today to talk to you about our experience being parents of a child with hearing loss and how important and vital the resources we received are to us and our son.
Finding ourselves here is never somewhere we thought we'd be. This issue became important to us back in 2019 when our son Cooper was born with unilateral microtia and atresia. This means that his ear didn't fully form, and although the inside can function just fine, there's no way for the sound to get in. This was something we had no warning of. And when you're brand new parents, you want nothing more than for everything to be perfect. We were left very alone and lost, worrying about our son's future and didn't know where to go next.
We were connected with an ENT and audiologist at Marybridge Children's Hospital who was able to tell us a little more about what microtia is. It was here that we learned about Pierce County's early intervention program, now called Early Supports for Infants and Toddlers. We got connected with them, and they connected us with Listen and Talk and an amazing specialist there. Our ESIT family educator and Listen and Talk specialist made sure that we never felt alone and lost again. They walked alongside us, educated us, advocated for us, and cheered with us as Cooper blew us all away with how he progressed. We initially feared how he might struggle gaining language, but through our work with Listen and Talk, not only was Cooper able to excel, but as parents, we felt such a weight lifted because thanks to the support system we now had, we knew what to do to help him, and we knew how to make sure that our son was getting everything he needed. They went so far and beyond, and we were even able to get the cost of Cooper's Baha, his hearing aid, covered, which was such a relief for our family. As we transitioned out of birth to 3 services, we have truly felt ready to advocate and give Cooper everything he needs as he enters school. The support team that we've built are also people that I know we could go to if any need arises. The comfort of knowing we have so much support really gives us confidence in Cooper's very bright future.
I have joined a lot of online communities with families who have experienced many of the same challenges that we have and are still looking for answers and support. Since that very first feeling of being alone, we have never felt like that again. The resources and support we were able to receive, we truly believe has set Cooper up to achieve anything he wants to. We feel so fortunate to have had access to these resources, and the thought that there are families out there that don't have the same access is heartbreaking. I can't imagine still feeling like those new parents who held Cooper for the first time and didn't know where to turn. The support we have received has made such an impact on our family that we can't help but advocate that all families should have the same access. All families need the resources and support, and education to feel like they are doing everything for their loved one. Making sure there is enough funding and continuing to educate on why these resources and support like we have received are so important has the potential to be truly life-changing for many families. So we want to say thank you for letting us come and talk to you today. You want to say thank you?
When are we gonna see them?
They're just going to watch this video. You want to say thank you for watching?
No.
Okay.
But when are we gonna talk to them?
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is Tanika. Thanks for talking to us, Cooper. Thank you, Brian, Leslie, and Cooper, for sharing what it's like when a family discovers their child needs special supports and what it's like to figure out where to turn in your community. We are grateful your experience fueled your advocacy for permanent caseload forecasting to ensure all in Washington who are eligible receive services. As all three of our speakers have shared, we need to address these critical needs facing families and individuals in Pierce County. We must do better so that Washington State is no longer in the lower 25% of funding nationally. So now let's turn our attention to our last three speakers for this evening and pivot to the final and third priority. We are asking to adopt the DSHS Employment and Day Right Study recommendations to sustain client services. So John and his family live in the 31st District. He is a white man wearing sunglasses, has short dark hair, a beard, and a mustache, and is seated wearing a red t-shirt with a brick wall behind him. Let's hear from John.
My name is Jonathan King. My legislative district is 31. I work for Lamppost Coffee Roasters here in Bonnie Lake, Washington. We roast coffee. I help the roaster weigh out the coffee and put the coffee up in a hopper so that the roaster can roast it.
Can you share why it's important you work?
Family. It provides gas money, groceries. I will be married 6 years in December. I have a son, he'll be 4 in March.
Does having an employment specialist help you if you want a promotion, higher pay, more hours?
Having an employment specialist does help with advocating.
Do you think it's important to have a stable employment specialist?
Yes.
What would happen if you didn't have an employment specialist?
I'm not sure I'd have a job.
Megan here. Thank you, John. We are grateful that you and the love of your life, your wife, are proud parents to your son. It is just clear how much love is in your family. Your job sustains that family, and the employment services you receive work with you to advocate for raises, navigate any new career options, and more. The problem is that after 12 years of no rate review or adjustment, employment and community inclusion providers are unable to sustain vital services. Legislators, we thank you for passing 2 bills in 2022, Senate Bill 5790 and House Bill 1980. A rate adjustment is needed for providers, though. Let's hear from Jacob, who lives in the 27th District, as he shares his gratitude for all the support he receives on the job. Jacob is a white man, wearing glasses, has light brown hair, is wearing a black t-shirt, is seated on a tan couch in front of a light tan wall.
My name is Jacob, or Commission short.
And what
I'm
you
a
do?
dispatcher at the Waiter Inn. I've been here for 7 months on 21st November. I've been driving here.
Anything specific about job coaching and like the specific services you got, like especially when you started here?
Helping me out at the beginning, helping me get situated. The career-based assessment was a massive help. given possible opportunity to improve my skills. Other aspects like teaching and learning how the job thing works, the application process, the interview, learning basic job skills and how that all works. Thank you guys for all the help you have provided with the disability services, DVR, DDA. I appreciate all it's been done. Thank you.
Tanika here. Thank you, Jacob, and we're thrilled you love your job. Your story reminds us of the importance of having partnerships between DDA, the Division of Vocational Rehabilitation, also called DVR, and the employment and community inclusion providers in the lives of all in Pierce County and their families. However, providers are facing a significant workforce crisis, and client access to services is at risk. In fact, 66.7% of all employment and community inclusion providers in our state have acknowledged they are at max capacity. So what's going to happen for all in Pierce County who want a job, whose families depend on them to earn a livable wage to improve their quality of life? Thankfully, the over 225 employers in Pierce County see the value of our supported employees. So a big shout out to all the employers listed on our Pierce County employer handout. It's in your packet. And also to the service providers and their amazing and talented teams. And now, it's our last speaker.
Oh my gosh.
Now to our last speaker, Eliza and her father, Gabriel. Eliza is a light brown skinned woman whose long black hair is pulled back in a ponytail, and she is wearing a black puffy jacket and is seated at a table next to her dad. Gabriel also has light brown skin, is wearing glasses, has black hair and a mustache, and is wearing a navy buttoned up polo shirt. They are both in front of a big white board.
How has the rate study affected you?
The rate study affected me because I had to change job coaches and I had to start over again.
Yeah, it's challenging when that happens. We get so used to just one job coach and then get to know them. They get to know Alicia. Alicia has a lot of backgrounds, not like she's the only special one, of course, but there's a lot, when her being out, and especially in a workplace, when she is out there, she does need the assistance just to kind of direct her, guide her a little bit. And of course, with her disability, that, having that support just for a short time, because she can only work for a short time. So there's just in that little bit, there's a lot to cover with somebody. And trying to do that over the years, it's transitioned good and everybody has been great. It's just that, it's just the consistency helps, because I think if there's a straight consistency with one-on-one person, I think things could be achieved even faster, or even, better in the long run. Thankfully it has been, and she's got a job now and she's happy. Getting to know the person and knowing their background and stuff like that, that's another safety concern of ours, is that we just don't want just another random person coming in. It's just, that's I guess you could say that overall it's just challenging,
This is Megan. Thank you, Alicia and Gabriel, Jacob, and John, for all bringing the value of employment and community inclusion providers into focus. We appreciate you so much. It's clear from all of our speakers that jobs transform lives, and we celebrate the fact that Washington State ranks #1 in the nation for employment outcomes for people with developmental disabilities. Bravo! However, now is the time to assure that we do all we can this legislative session to keep our standards high and adopt the recommendations of the DSHS Employment and Day Rate Study.
Tanika here. So, as you heard tonight, client services rely on community inclusion and employment provider networks being stabilized by adopting the recommended rates. We are also asking for increased funding for community outreach and education. National and local experts agree the workforce crisis may be the most significant challenge we face in maintaining client services. The good news, with action we can address the critical needs amplified tonight by all our speakers, from housing to permanent caseload forecasting to employment and day rates.
This is Megan. Providing services to meet the needs of our fellow neighbors, friends, coworkers, parents, and family members with a developmental disability is the responsibility of all of us in Pierce County. This includes our state's social service system with the support of legislative actions. We have a long history of working together to address the critical needs being faced in our community, and we must keep that promise.
Tanika here. So remember, nothing about us without us. Tonight, that will quite literally be all of us meeting with our legislators and their staff in designated district breakout rooms. So when you registered, you indicated your district. So we will open the district breakout rooms and we will make sure that you get into your district with the legislators and staff here with us tonight. So this is your chance. This is your chance. So listen to each other and share how having services with caseload forecasting and community inclusion and employment services, talk about how they matter to you. Of course, if it's not easy to share, you can listen and take notes, right? Hear about what others are saying. But if you're ready, share. There will be facilitators and tech people in each of your district rooms to make sure everyone who wants to has a turn to share. They are also there to support the legislators and their staff.
This is Megan. So let's all remember, in case you didn't hear it earlier this evening, all the handouts are compiled and made accessible by members of the Pierce County Legislative Forum Planning Committee and are available on the website. If you didn't write it down earlier, that website is www.piercelegislativeforum.org. We wish to again thank all of you for being here tonight. It is a pleasure to be here with you, and we're so grateful. Thanks to all our speakers for daring to risk and share their personal stories for the change we want to see in our community. It is not easy, and we are so appreciative of that vulnerability. And thanks to all who serve the individuals with a developmental disability and who are eligible for services in Pierce County for their presence tonight and representing the vast partnership network in place in Pierce County. It truly takes a village, and we are so glad to be in it with each of you. We want to acknowledge this forum comes together thanks to its convening hosts, Pave, PC2, and Pierce County.
Tanika here. Okay, everyone. So you've earned a break. So please stretch, get a bio break in, get something to take some notes, go grab a snack, and most of all, come back here. Come back here in 5 minutes. 5 minutes. Right? So that does it for myself and my co-host Megan. Again, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you, Tanika. I'm so pleased to have been here for the first time. I promise it won't be my last. We'll see if you invite me back to the co-host spot.
I think we'll buy it back.
I appreciate it. I'm planning to take a quick break, and then I will be joining my breakout room and hope to see all of you there too.
All right, so Tanika here. Again, thanks everyone. Enjoy your time with the other members of your community and your district. Advocate in your rooms with your legislators. So the main Zoom room is going to stay open. So if for any reason you get bumped out, we'll help you get back into your breakout room. There'll be someone there to help you. And next we are going to break into our district room. So remember, back here in 5 minutes.